We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. We've got a guest with us today. Always look forward to having Ed as a guest on the Rational Boomer podcast. I got to be honest, Ed, when I have you on, these are the easiest shows I do. Because of our experience working together, we kind of have a rapport and we kind of know what to expect out of one another. And it makes the whole process a whole lot easier. I don't have to watch for you or protect you like I would some other people. And I don't mean that they do a bad job. It's just that I got to be careful because they may not be as savvy about things you want to say and don't want to say as an individual. So it's good to have you on board today.
You bet. Always glad to be here, Mike. I enjoy the heck out of it.
Well, what's kind of fun is I tell people that one of the reasons I do the podcast is out of pure revenge. And I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but when I retired and I had our little conversation with our mutual boss, and I use that term loosely because he was a dumb fuck, still is probably a dumb fuck. I told him, I said, you know what, someday I'm going to do something on the internet and I'm going to get more listeners and more viewers than you got on the whole fucking station. And you know what? We do. we have more fucking viewers and followers than KBM could ever hope to have. And for my vindictive side, that's very heartwarming for me.
I know you're enjoying every minute of it for sure. I hung in a little longer. I played it differently, but yeah, I understand why you would be just a little bit. What's the word I want?
Pissed off.
Well, you said it pretty well. I understand. Yeah, there you go. That's good enough. Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't just about me. It was that they'd done it to other people prior to me.
Yeah.
So this was not just a one-time thing. Mike's an asshole, so let's do it to him. They did it to anybody that was making any kind of money because they'd been there a long time. So anyway, yeah. Fuck them, fuck him. Now let's move on to more negative shit. Politics in this country. We've been hearing a lot about this impeachment thing. You got to be pretty excited, pretty nervous about that.
And not exactly. 1 second. And as a matter of fact, I think what pisses me off most about this impeachment inquiry is that how stupid do they think we are, and are they right? Right. They are right about probably a little less than half of the American people who think Donald Trump is actually a decent human being, a leader of some sort, or anything except something to scrape off the bottom of your shoe and throw in the trash. Anybody who doesn't see Trump that way is an idiot, okay? So we have here McCarthy, who's just doing this because a small group of people, the so-called Freedom Caucus, have him over a barrel. If he doesn't do exactly what they want, they'll call a no confidence vote and boot his ass out. That was the deal with the devil he made, and that's why he's doing this. You know, all he had, there is no evidence.
No,
and
nothing.
You don't bring a case without evidence. I don't care who you are. I don't care if it's if you arrest somebody for littering without the litter, you're going to lose. You know, there is no evidence, none. Simple allegations, and it's all crap. And once again, I'm saying, how stupid do they think people are? It's transparent. And anybody who doesn't see that needs to be bitch slapped. Pardon that term. I don't like it, but I do like it in this case.
I like that term. I use it frequently. Now, the thing is, what you said is true. McCarthy was appeasing the Freedom Caucus because he's afraid that they were going to get a vote of no confidence. But I think things have changed a little bit. I mean, Kevin McCarthy said he would bring it to the floor for a vote, and he didn't. And there's only one.
He lied.
Yeah, he lied, but there's only one reason he didn't do the vote, because he couldn't win.
Doesn't have the votes. Yeah, exactly. But go ahead.
Well, and you know, Matt Gaetz said threatened him. You might lose his job, and you heard what Kevin said to him. Well,
Yeah, he
fucking
used
do
the
it.
F word.
Yeah, he said,
Yeah,
well, fucking do
exactly.
it. And the thing is, now Kevin finally grew a set of balls, and he realizes something that we realized all along. You can possibly put up a vote to vacate Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. That's not going to pass either. And
No.
then
And
once they do it and blow their wad, they have no more power.
exactly, even if they did manage to take him out, who they got?
Right. There's nobody
That,
that could
that
get 218 votes. Nobody.
no. So then we don't have a speaker, which is, maybe they'd be fine with that. I'm not sure. But they're never going to get a member of the Freedom Caucus in as speaker. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
No,
McCarthy probably won't be removed for the same
no.
reason because people are sick. I'm sure people are sick of these obstructionists. Even when Romney announced that he was not going to run again, he still alluded to the decent Republicans. I'm not sure there's that many of them left. Hopefully there are a few, but you're never anybody who's decent has to be tired of obstruction, obstruction, obstruction. Not only in the House, but then you got Tommy Tuberville up in the Senate, who has a one-man campaign to destroy the armed forces.
Right.
All the while, waving flags and jumping up and down and proclaiming freedom and stuff. And this guy's hurting the military. There's no way around it that he isn't. And I don't know if I were Mitch McConnell, I'd invite him in my office and beat the shit out of him. Not figuratively. I'm not advocating violence, or I mean, not literally. I'm not advocating violence, but I would tell him, you're going off all the committees. You will do nothing else here, and I will actively work to get you replaced. That's what needs to happen. This is on Mitch now.
Well, you talked about Mitt Romney quitting, and something I've uh, talked about before is that Mitt Romney is leaving for maybe any number of reasons. He's tired of the bullshit with the Republican Party. He's not in line with the craziness that's going on. He's taken a lot of heat after voting twice to impeach Donald Trump. There's a story that says he's paying like $5,000 a day for security. And that's not to protect him from
Yeah, I don't doubt
Democrats,
it.
not Democrats, fucking his own
No,
people. They want to kill him and his family. So Mitch has that going against him. He's getting older. He's getting, what's he, 76? Which, in terms of the Senate, he's like a teenager because everybody else is in their fucking 80s and 90s, it seems like, or they're stupid. But anyway, the other thing Mitt has to worry about, there's a book coming out. And it sounds
mm-hmm.
like there's a lot of shit talking going on in that book. It's all accurate, it's all real and true, but he's going to stir up a hornet's nest. And if he thinks he got shit before, it's going to get even worse. So I'm not sure what his plan is here. Fortunately, he's a very wealthy guy. He can afford $150,000 a month security. But that book is going to be interesting because he's specifically calling out people. And I think it will help the Democrats going into 2024 because here's a Republican now outing them again. It's not going to convince everybody, but it's going to convince enough of people where it's going to really turn the independents and some reasonably minded Republicans away from Donald Trump or whoever the Republican candidate is.
Absolutely. What was interesting to me, I heard yesterday, some of the things that he's alleging or that he's blowing the whistle on, more likely, involved Mitch. Mitch came out and said categorically or uncategorically that he didn't recall,
Right.
which
Well,
is covering his butt when the messages that actually that the proof comes out. He can say, "Well, I'd forgotten about that," but right now he's trying to head it off by saying he didn't recall when he knows absolutely that it's true.
Well, and I said on the podcast yesterday, it's maybe believable that he doesn't recall. And let's just explain what we're talking about here. Mitt Romney had suggested that he contacted Mitch McConnell prior to January 6th, hearing about the threats online. And he warned him about it. Mitch McConnell never even responded to him. So then Mitch McConnell says he doesn't recall. Well, based on what we've seen of Mitch McConnell as of late, he can't recall fucking breakfast, let alone January 6th. But at the same time, if someone says that about you, that's a pretty egregious thing. You don't say, I don't recall. You categorically said, that's bullshit.
No.
I did not know that. But he doesn't do that because he doesn't want to be caught in a lie or embarrassed or whatever. So, yeah, Mitch is not going to look good in this situation. Not that he ever did before, but this is going to be bad for Mitch.
Well, that's all Mitch can say because we have the text.
Right.
We have the context. We have what was sent to him from Romney, and it's flat out exactly that there's going to be violence on the 6th, and he sent this on the 2nd because of what he had heard, and Mitch ignored it, and that's all there is to it. He ignored it, and that means he was privy beforehand to what was going to go down, because obviously the whole plan was there: get Pence out of the way, have the geriatric Iowa guy, Grassley, take over for Pence, and send it all back to the states where the state legislatures were ready to put in the fake electors, and boom, you're just stolen an election. So it's all there. It's all going to come out. And I won't buy the book. I'm not going to, because I don't have to, because everybody will be reading it to us on air on the MSNBC for the next 6 months. So, yeah, I don't have to buy it. But speaking of books, by the way, apparently Tucker Carlson came out with a biography that nobody bought. And he forgot. The problem is none of his viewers can read. So, there's that problem. Maybe the audio book will do better.
Tucker Carlson is spinning out of control. He had a guest on recently. It's as if he's trying to pick up the mantle from Maury or Jerry. He had a guy on there that claimed to, in the 80s, to have smoked crack and had sex with Obama. Now, there's no proof of that. But Tucker was trying to get some ratings, and he decided to come up with that bullshit. Now, I've heard of this guy before, and it's a joke, and he's a con man and all this shit. But Tucker Carlson has fallen quite far from being the top cable reporter in the country to what I call the equivalent of the broadcasting lemonade stand, and hoping against hope that people come by and listen to his shit. So now he's having to get a little crazy with some of this conspiracy bullshit. And it's not going well for him on Twitter. I don't think Twitter's doing very well at all. I don't deal with it much. Do you still?
No. I check in maybe once a week to see if anybody's commented from stuff I post. I rarely post anything. I'll throw up something every now and then, but I'll go and check if it's gotten any traction or anything. But nah, it's a waste of time, pretty much. Tucker, I think, once again, he misjudged his audience, thinking that they knew how to use a computer and that they actually owned one. These people can watch TV for sure. But they have, most of them may not even have internet where they live. So the chances of them being able to watch him are just not that good.
Yeah.
They can barely manage Facebook,
And Tucker Carlson learned a lesson that I learned a long time ago, is no matter who you are, whether it's in a company and you work in the company, or if you're in broadcasting and on the air, you might have a great following. They may love you. They may give you accolades. But the moment you're gone, you're forgotten. Pretty much.
Yeah. Pretty much,
Yeah. I mean, it's sad to say that. You would hope that people would pine for you once you're gone, but they don't. And I can't really bitch about it because I would do the same thing of somebody I watch on the news that I really like. Once they're gone, you kind of forget about them and you focus on what's going on now. And that's where Tucker is having a problem. I heard a suggestion on TikTok. I think you'll appreciate this. You know, when it was called Twitter, when you posted something, it was a tweet, right? So what
Yeah.
somebody suggested, now that it's called X, instead of a tweet, it should be called an excretion. And I fucking like that.
I like that a lot, actually. I think about Bob Dole. I've been tested and tested and tested. When he lost, his presidential bid, I
Right.
remember his concession speech. He said, "Now I'm going to be quiet for a while, but you can rest assured that I will be speaking out on different topics as they arise." Never heard from him again.
Never heard from him
Nobody wanted
again.
to hear.
No.
Yeah,
I
nobody
mean,
wanted to hear what he had to say. He was, chopped liver. He was gone.
that's why I do TikToks every day and a podcast every day. I let it go for a week and somebody else moves in.
Exactly. Mhm. Yeah, and don't let the screen door hit you on your way out. Remember old what's his name?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the old joke about? There's an old joke about actors. Let's use my name. Give me Ed Jones. Give me a young Ed Jones. Give me an Ed Jones type.
Yeah.
Who the hell's Ed Jones?
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
that's the way it goes with actors. That's the way it goes with pretty much anybody in media or the public eye.
Well, the media is it's always so fluid. It's in flux. Things change so quickly. I mean, 1 minute CNN seems like a great source. Next minute, they're doing fucking stupid shit, like the town hall meeting with Donald Trump. And that, have you seen these clips of the interview that Donald Trump did with Megan, whatever the fuck her
Yes.
name is? My
Yeah,
God,
Kelly. Yeah.
Megan Kelly. Somebody's got to pull this fucking idiot aside and say, "Have you ever heard the phrase, you have the right to remain silent? Anything you
Yeah.
say can and will be used against you in a court of law?" This motherfucker basically confessed to every felony charge he has. And every time he
Yeah.
opened his mouth, he implicated himself. What a dumb motherfucker. His lawyer's got to be going nuts.
Well, somebody the other day put up something that said that Trump has two things and two things only, and they're both lies. They're both big lies. The first big lie was the election was stolen,
Right.
and the second big lie, the one he's counting on now for his followers and so forth, all these charges are politically motivated. That's it.
Yeah.
He's basically saying there's nothing to these charges, even though there is, and
Yeah.
there's plenty of evidence for all of them to convict him on every one of them. They're politically motivated, so they shouldn't count. They should reinstall me as president. Blah blah blah. Woof woof woof. I don't see how anybody can stand to go to a rally and listen to the same old crap over and over and over again.
Well, I think he's losing some audience here, but one of the things he said on Megyn Kelly is the same thing he said over and over again. He didn't say I didn't take the documents or I mistakenly took the documents. He said I had every right to have all the documents. It's right there in the Presidential Records Act. Well, both of those are fucking a lie. Clearly, he's never read the
Right.
Presidential Records Act or
No.
somebody told him the wrong
Or anything
information.
else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think he reads. But he sits there on Megyn Kelly and he says this shit, and that stuff will be shown on trial just to prove that this fucking guy really believes he should be able to do whatever he wants just by virtue of being president.
Well, he is the definition. If you look up malignant narcissist in the psychiatric books, his picture's there
Yeah, no
because he
question.
is the perfect perfect illustration of that particular disorder. Also, he's blown out of his mind on Adderall half the time, sniffing it up his nose. And you can tell by his sniffing and his erratic behavior and his blathering and so forth that because he knows he's ignorant, he can barely read. Just to appear on camera, he has to be blown out of his mind. So there's that too. And that's rarely addressed. But the guy's a full blown Adderall addict. There's no question in my mind.
Did you hear about the last ploy that he tried with his lawyers down in Florida with the classified documents case? They said, look, these classified documents, we got to look at them to get ready for trial. Okay, fair enough. And they said, but, Don's busy and he doesn't really want to travel. How about we just bring the classified documents down to Mar-a-Lago and we'll look at them. We'll give them back to you, of course. How fucking ridiculous is that? I mean, it's like going to a bank, robbing the bank, getting arrested, and then going to trial and say, listen, we have a difference in how much money there was. So send the money back to me so I can count it. And then I'll send it back, of course. I mean, Donald Trump's told us he wants the shit back. Well, fortunately, even Aileen Cannon, the judge that's in the pocket of Donald Trump, even she said, yeah, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to go to a fucking skiff. So I'm sure he's shitting his pants over that.
Yeah. And he's not going to do that. He can't read. He's not going to go read anything. His lawyers have access, but they'll have to go and do it for him, I suppose. But I can't. I was watching the hearing yesterday in front of Judge McAfee.
McAfee, yeah.
McAfee, who was ruling on various and sundry things about the case there in Georgia. And I'm looking at these lawyers and I'm wondering, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Are you thinking you're going to get some publicity that maybe some other right-wing dictators will come and ask you to be their lawyer? I mean, they did some stuff that I thought one guy could have been charged with contempt, and I give the judge credit for not doing it, but to a certain extent. But I would have loved to have seen it to shut him down when he keeps mouthing off after the judge tells him, put that in your pocket and get the fuck out of here. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, these guys, where do they find them? I mean, we see Rudy Giuliani and we see the other lawyers that Trump has had, and they're all bottom feeders pretty much. But I don't know, is there a bottom feeders website where you go to find these guys?
I think you find them on bus benches, and it's under 1-800-SHYSTER. You call them up, and for $20 an hour, they'll come up and defend you. I mean, he really is at the bottom of the barrel with his lawyers, because they just absolutely don't know what the fuck they're doing. I don't know if it's that they're just bowing to Donald Trump, because I know Donald Trump is directing them. No, do this. No, do that. And all of it's stupid. You would think lawyers would realize that they're at risk here of sanctions, of getting disbarred, because there's already been some that have. I don't know why they continue to bow to Donald Trump when they know it's a fucking loser.
And that he's not going to pay them in the long run anyway. So it has to be publicity there's counting on. There's no such thing as bad publicity or something like that. I'm not sure what it is, but I find them to be pretty repugnant in general. At the same time, let me qualify that by saying everyone is entitled to a fair trial and to representation by legal counsel. They're entitled to it, and they should get the best that they can possibly get. Yes.
Right.
But some of these guys, I think Trump's big strength had always been his willingness to go where no decent person would ever go. I mean, nobody thought about that there would be a president someday who would try to overturn an election. Right. I mean, I don't know why they didn't think it, because we saw it with Bush. I mean, it wasn't Bush's idea, but it was the people behind him, and they managed to do it then. Al Gore should have been president. They managed to keep Hillary Clinton from being president. This would be a far better country if Hillary Clinton had been president and not Donald Trump. Let me say that right now. I just heard a story on National Public Radio yesterday that Hillary Clinton alone, through her own, on her own, through her connections, rescued over 1,000 women from Afghanistan when the government fell, because Trump only negotiated with the Taliban, not with the Afghan government,
Right.
and then left the whole thing on Biden's plate to sort out. But and there were mistakes made for sure. But Hillary was in contact with these 1,000 women that she knew were on the kill list when the Taliban came in. She managed to get them Albanian passports to get them out. How she did that through the Biden, through the Clinton Foundation, however she was able to do it, she did it, and she got them flying out of the country from a different airport rather than Kabul. And she rescued these 1,000 women. Now you got to pat that woman on the back for that, and you got to say, now that's the kind of person we need as a president.
Somebody who actually gets things done. You said that we would have been better off with Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. Let's be perfectly honest. We would have been better with Larry the Cable Guy over Donald Trump. It really didn't make a difference who it was. Donald Trump is so bad. I mean,
No.
he ruined the White House and our future trust in presidents, because what he did was not so much break laws, although he did break laws. It was always very kind of soft. It was all these norms that nobody would ever cross because there might be some ramifications from that. But Donald Trump just rode all over those norms, which leaves the door wide open for any other fucked up president that happens to get there. Now, if Donald Trump gets held accountable and goes to jail, maybe that will stop people from doing it. But Donald Trump just ran roughshod. All these norms that were supposed to keep people corralled and honest didn't do shit. And our government showed they had no teeth when it came to presidents or senators or representatives in the House.
Exactly. I did a TikTok recently comparing the different governments that conservatives have put in place when they had the con, so to speak.
Right.
Everything from a plutocracy where you have wealthy people running everything to a kleptocracy where you have corporations stealing tax money left and right. And it culminated in what's called a kakistocracy, which
Right.
is ruled by the very worst, the most unwholesome trash. That is what the Trump administration was. And you can
Right.
see he picked, quote, the best and the brightest, but he had to get rid of every damn one of them before it was all said and done, because they were
Sure.
all creeps, all idiots, and all people that for some reason or other would fail because they just couldn't cut the mustard when you come right down to it.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing that that we see this happening and nobody would have ever imagined it. You know, you always see these people on TikTok. We're transitioning to another parallel universe. I mean, what's going on right now is so foreign and so outlandish. It almost seems like we're in a different world because we could have never imagined that this kind of shit would happen. And
No.
it's fucking crazy.
I guess I underestimated the resentment of what do I want to call them? White rural whites. I guess I will call them, because they're the same whether it's St. Cloud, Minnesota, or Rogersville, Tennessee. There are these yahoos who know all about their rights, although they think they have rights they don't, and they reject all responsibility. They want everything their way, and if they want to they don't want to pollute their vehicle with their McDonald's order once they're done with it. They just pitch it out the window because they can, and that's their right to
Right.
do that.
Right.
Regardless of who has to eventually pick it up or deal with the little styrofoam thing or whatever. I see it everywhere here,
Yeah.
and anything else they want to do is just fine because that's their right, but they
Right.
have no responsibility to their neighbor or anyone else. And I guess I had misconstrued the depth of the resentment they felt because they were forced to live in a civilized society, which they've been resistant to probably right from the beginning. But if you feel that way, if you're a rugged individualist, go off somewhere where it's rugged and be individual and leave civilized people alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I always thought that where Donald Trump was successful was that he went to these rural folks that are somehow convinced over time that the government's out to get them. They take advantage of them. They
Mm-hmm.
aren't doing well financially or socially, and they blame the government for it. So when Donald Trump comes out and says those same things that that they think and says, "I'm going to fight for you. We're going to take down the government." They're all about taking down the government because they feel the government isn't doing shit for them. And that may or may not be true, but that's not the fucking way to do it.
Right. Well, they're not intelligent enough to realize which party has been the enabler of the corporations that took their jobs and sent them overseas and have done everything possible to put them into a place of poverty where they have to work for nothing and work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. With no benefits and no rights or anything else, because that is really what it's come down to in manufacturing in my area. There are no unions. There's no union representation. So you have 13-year-old kids getting ground up into hamburger because they're working in a meat packing plant at midnight, cleaning the machine without any idea about it. And this happens. We know it happens. And so many other things. But they put their faith in these people. And you know why? Because they're used to it. They're used to a guy in a really good suit and telling them, well, you can be rich like me if you give me your money.
Yeah.
This is seed faith. You got to send me some money and then God will bless you. Come on, bring it on. Send it to
Yeah.
Del Rio, Texas. And we're good. It's the same thing. They believe. They want to believe in somebody. They can't think. They just want to believe.
Well, it's the same mentality of those people I see in the gas stations that buy 50 scratch off cards.
Yes.
They're putting all their hopes in a huge risk because they feel like they're so deep in the shit that they're going to take any chance they can. So they put their trust in the evangelicals or the politicians. All you have to do is tell them what they want to hear. And I've said this about my father, who was a crazy narcissist. While he was a tough guy and while he was not a great guy to be around, just by virtue of his personality, he was easily manipulated. I just had to tell him what he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to hear. You're a great guy. You're a fucking genius.
Yeah.
Oh, I need your help
Yeah.
on this. And then you could get him to do anything you wanted. That's what happens with Donald Trump. And that's what happens to all these other people. They're just desperate for some kind of help. And if some guy tells you you're going to help them, they'll jump on board without any kind of vetting at all. I mean, a good example is Ron DeSantis. I'm convinced that Ron
Mm-hmm.
DeSantis popped up because he talked enough like Donald Trump, but didn't have the baggage. People were worried about Donald Trump and his problems, so they just grabbed onto DeSantis as quickly as possible because he was the closest thing to what Trump was. But they didn't bother to vet him and find out that he's a fucking creep, that he's socially awkward, that he's not very bright, that he's a fascist in nature, and now he's starting to fall by the wayside. I don't think Ron will be in the mix in 2024.
I got to throw this out there because I'm not sure it's true. So I'm going to qualify this. I'm not sure this is true. I
Okay.
do think the basics are true, but I'm not sure the particulars. I saw, I believe it was on maybe TikTok or somewhere. I saw this woman saying, "Look, I was at Yale or Harvard, whichever it was he went to. It was one of the Ivy League schools, in the same class as Ron DeSantis. Did you know he was thrown out for a year?"
I did not.
Because Well, according to her, this is true, and you can Google it and see if it's the case. I don't know, but she claimed that he showed up in the cafeteria and they had Mexican food going, and I don't remember the name of the thing, but it's a little roll-up kind of thing with a not a taco. What's the thing that goes around a taco?
A
Tortilla,
burrito or
tortilla.
tortilla? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, like a flour tortilla that wraps. And he took out his penis, wrapped it in one of these, and said it should be a burrito. Everyone laughed at him, and he started turning over tables and shit. And that's why they threw him out for a year. I don't know if that's true. I don't, but I like putting it out there anyway.
I choose to believe it. I choose to believe it's true.
I do. I think it's probably true because it sounds like him. It really does. And also, especially the part about the small penis, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to get you can get the smaller tortillas, and that would probably work for him. There'd be a little room, but you got to stuff some lettuce and shit in there. So, well, the other thing about Ron DeSantis too is that, he was talking recently about being a Navy SEAL. He was not a Navy SEAL. He kind of worked in coordination with the Navy SEAL, but his real job, I can't remember the title, but there's a guy in the military that handled urine samples. Okay.
Yeah.
And Ron DeSantis was his assistant. So I presume you got the soldier and you got the doctor, whoever handles the urinalysis, and there's Ron DeSantis, the middleman, just taking piss and handing the piss off. And that's a far cry from being a SEAL, I think.
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, also, I don't know if you've noticed, but he and his quote, Surgeon General, who's a fucking idiot. I don't even know where he comes from, but he's a COVID denier, first of all. And DeSantis is always, promoting his reaction to COVID and how he dealt with it and how it was better than anywhere else. Well, actually, there were more deaths in Florida than almost anywhere else. Yeah. So he just skips right over that. But they're back at it again. They're telling people don't get the vaccine. It's bad for you, And this is, I don't know why these people can't be sued for this kind of thing and shut down and made to shut up, because this is in the public interest that people get vaccinated. I'm sorry. If you haven't gotten vaccinated, you're an idiot. Right. You're a total idiot.
I presume you're going to get because you're going to get the booster when it comes out. No, I know, but you're going to get the booster.
I'll be first in line. I'll be first in line. Yeah, as soon as it's available, I'll be there. I'll get a flu shot and I'll get the respiratory shot that they're recommending too, because I'm not an idiot. Right. I remember polio. I remember how scared people were of polio when I was a kid. I was early to mid 50s. I remember. And, it wasn't as bad as anywhere near as bad as COVID is. I think 60,000 deaths in a year was the worst it ever got. Right. But it did impact a lot of people. And we saw the pictures of the kids in the iron lungs on TV all the time. And you had the March of Dimes with the ladies knocking on your door, collecting your spare change and everything. And because of vaccination, we got rid of it. It disappeared. No polio, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That alone should do it. Measles, mumps, whooping cough. This used to kill people every year. Children. We got the vaccines. We took them. Went away. And yet now vaccination doesn't work because we say it doesn't work. We're idiots. We're worse than idiots. We're murderers.
Well, back when we were worried about it, the widespread that COVID was back in the day, you wanted everybody to get the vaccine because it just represented the possibility of further spreading. And it still is at this point, but it's not quite as crazy as it was back then. For me, if Republicans don't want to get the COVID shot, I don't fucking care. I mean, how many Republicans or Trump-lefucks died amongst the million that died of COVID? I'm guessing a pretty good percentage. And if they want to kill more off, that's up to them. I'm fine with that.
It was a substantial amount more Republicans than Democrats. And by substantial, I mean 10% or something like that, because there were dumb fuck Democrats too,
Oh, no
who
question.
didn't get it, didn't want to get it, and so forth. My problem with people not getting vaccinated is that they can spread it, and at an unguarded moment, they could give it to me. I probably won't die from it, but I don't want to spend a week with flu-like symptoms and crap and maybe develop long COVID or something like that. I take it personally. I take it as personally as if you walked into a supermarket and tried to stick the place up. I take that personally too. You're going to get a can of beans upside your head if I have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
I just wish I could do that with people who don't get vaccines.
And Florida is kind of a hotbed for illness. I mean, they have the COVID issue, and that's going to get worse if they continue to do things the way they're doing it. But
Absolutely.
They got malaria. They
Yep.
got fucking leprosy.
Yep.
I hadn't heard about leprosy since the fucking Bible, for God's sake.
That's pretty much it. I mean, you'd see it in the Horn of Africa. You'd see these kids with flies on their eyes and shit, and they got leprosy too, which boggles my mind. That I'm not even going to get into it. But the idea that leprosy is making a comeback because people are just nasty. Yeah, that's what it comes down to.
Well, the weird thing about Florida too is with COVID, with leprosy, with malaria, with whatever sickness, that state has a couple of problems. First of all, they have a lot of elderly folks down there.
Yeah.
That is going to truly be what they used to jokingly call the boomer remover. I mean, those people down there are hardcore Trump-fucks, and they aren't going to get the vaccine, and they're 75 years old and not the healthiest fucks in the first place. They're going to have trouble. And if they don't get COVID, they got to be careful because they might get fucking leprosy. It's just, truly amazing.
You know what else they're going to get? You know what's rampant in the villages?
I do.
That pristine area filled with Republicans and Trump-fucks where the only cases of voter fraud they could find in Florida were actually in the villages. It's VD. It's rampant.
STDs.
All kinds of it, all through the villages. STDs. Yeah.
I had somebody write me and say, you won't believe the fucking villages. They drive around in their golf carts and they hang different colored loofahs off the fucking antennas or whatever, just to stipulate what you're into, whether it be group sex or gay or what. It's fucking amazing to me. I mean, can you imagine the reality show is 70 people, 70 plus, having illicit sex all over this gated community? Fuck's sake. That'd be fucking entertaining. Well, I got to tell you.
I'm told it's rampant in both nursing homes and assisted living facilities too. I guess at that age, you go for what you got, right?
Wow.
I got nothing left. I can't see the TV. I can't hear music. I guess I'll go down the hall and visit Gladys.
You got to wonder if it's not an offshoot of these people being in their 20s and the 60s and the whole free love thing. Then they got married and got boring for a while. Then they turned 75 and they back to the free love shit. I mean, it just this place sounds so disgusting. I saw a documentary on the villages, and they had one story about this guy that didn't have a lot of money. He couldn't afford a place in the villages. He lived in a van. He's 75 years old. He lives in a van. And what he does, he pulls up in the parking lot, walks into the villages, hangs out at the pool, trying to hook up with an elderly widower or widow. So he's got some fucking place to stay. My God, you're 75 years old. Fuck's sake. It's just, wow, that's sad.
Yeah, well, what can I tell you?
Yeah,
it is sad, but and I'm just saying, these are the people who vote for Trump, right?
Yeah, despicable motherfuckers. I tell you what, Ed, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
All righty.
We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Ed is my guest today, talking about all things politics as we do. I wanted to bring up Hunter Biden again because he did get indicted. He got indicted for 3 gun charges, which is interesting to me. I don't know if there's going to be more indictments or not. Presumably, there will be for some taxes. But a couple of things about these indictments and these charges with guns. First of all, this isn't making the Republicans happy. They don't like it, and they're saying the quiet part out loud. Oh, sure, they indicted him on the things that cannot be tied to Joe Biden. Well, none of it can be tied to Joe Biden, but
No.
especially not the fucking guns.
No, and most of the legal people I hear from say under most circumstances, this would never be charged to anyone who wasn't the president's son. I mean, it's exactly the opposite of what the Republicans are claiming. This would not have been filed. This would have been just a secondary thing that they would have noted that it happened. Okay, great. He bought a gun. He never used it, had no ammo, and he sold it again.
Right.
Boom. That's it. He lied on the thing. Right, that on the registration form when
right.
he ordered the gun, when he bought the gun. He said, "I'm not a drug addict," and a couple other statements there that were not true. Yes, but it's to charge it as a felony is ridiculous, and the tax things are already they're misdemeanors. Any payments or anything like interest, anything like that to the IRS, he's already taken care of. If he was anybody but Hunter Biden, none of this would have been charged. It's that simple.
Well, clearly, this is all about pressure from the Republicans. I mean, they had a plea deal. The guy who's the special counsel is the one that agreed to that plea deal. And then they said, do you need to be special counsel? He said, nah, I had everything I need up until the time the Republicans start putting the pressure. Now he says he needs to be a special counsel. And now all of a sudden he's looking at this completely different. The facts haven't changed. Nothing has changed other than he's getting pressure from Republicans and he's succumbing to that fucking pressure. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What's interesting about it is the irony of it all. They're worried about Hunter Biden having a gun, whether he be a drug addict or not.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I understood, Republicans, their attitude is everybody should have a gun. Anybody can have a gun for whatever fucking reason.
That's true.
And the law that they're trying to get Hunter Biden on, I understand at least one appeals court, that law was found to be unconstitutional. So now apparently Republicans are all for everybody having guns as long as you're a Republican, but not Democrats and not Hunter Biden.
Right.
This is going to slap them in the face because you can't have it both ways. If it's saving Republicans from getting prosecuted, it's going to save Hunter Biden.
Exactly. What strikes me about Hunter Biden is I can't think of a president who hasn't had a shady relative.
No, they all did.
You had Billy Carter. You had Donald Nixon. Who's the third Bush boy who had all the trouble with the Silverado savings and loan thing? What is his name? I can't remember. There's W, and then there's
Jeb.
The other Jeb, who was, probably the smartest of the bunch. And I can't remember the third one's name, but he was one really shady character and probably should have wound up in jail, but he didn't because he was a Bush, right?
Right.
Once again, let's see, Bill Clinton had a brother who was pretty shady. I don't know about Reagan. Was he an only child, or did he have? He certainly had plenty of shady friends. I don't know if he had any shady relatives or not. But then you've got Trump, who his daughter, his son-in-law,
both his sons,
Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, got one son who was stealing from a charity. Well, they all were, for that matter. But then you've got the entire Trump. They talk about the Biden crime family. Well, we've got. Somebody said Barron Trump's the only guy whose both grandfathers have mugshots. That's or both.
That's true.
That's, or maybe it was Ivanka's kids. They have grandfathers with mug shots. That's true. By the way, there's a guy in my hometown who has a picture of Trump's mug shot on his front lawn with the emblazoned "Wanted for President in 2024."
Wow.
Some people never learn.
That's a special kind of stupid. It sounds like Jared might be looking at some problems
Guess what
too.
this guy does?
What's he do?
Guess what this guy does for a living? He has a gold exchange. He's a fence. That's what it comes down to. I mean, a friend of mine who lives nearby he inherited from his mother a very expensive ring. They knew it was worth $8,000 years before when the father bought it for the mother. He took it in just to see, to get it evaluated. This guy goes, "Well, it's not real gold and the jewels aren't real. Tell you what, I'll give you $800 for it." It's an $8,000 ring. This is what this guy is like. So you can imagine he's a Trump supporter.
Yeah, no doubt. I had a friend when I had a studio in downtown Minneapolis, and in this building, it was a lot of different businesses, advertising agencies and such. But there was a guy who had a gold and silver wholesale place. Great guy. We had lunch with him all the time. And I always thought he was pretty legit. He was always nice to me, so I never disliked the guy. But I remember being up in his office and we're talking, and he's just nonchalantly doing this. You know what the boxes that checks came in?
Yeah.
Okay, he had a check box like that. And he pulled out a handful of currency bills. I go, "Jesus, how much is that?" He goes, "This is about $4,000." He took the $4,000 in currency, put it in the check box, then got some wrapping paper, brown wrapping paper, wrapped it up all nice and tight, put an address on it and put some stamps on it and threw it in the fucking mail. That tells me there's something shady going on there.
You think?
It's fucking unbelievable what people will do.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shady people out there, and shady behavior is something Donald Trump is going to have to deal with like less than 2 weeks. That's a Letitia James lawsuit.
Yeah.
Coming up October 2nd. Some say the 5th. It's in that range anyway, but October 2nd. And Donald Trump has done everything he could to try to get out from under this. And I've told other people, I say, to date, this will be far and away the most devastating court issue that he's had to deal with, because he's almost certainly going to lose. What he did was so flagrant, so blatant, and there's so much evidence. He inflated the prices, the values of his properties when it served him well. And then when it came to paying taxes, he deflated the amount of money. And never did he use the actual amount. He was always lying in all cases. So he's got bank fraud, insurance fraud, and tax fraud. This isn't going to bode well for him because they're asking for a minimum of $250 million. And they want to force him out of doing business in New York. So this paints an interesting picture. If he can't pay the $250 million, presumably they'll put his property in receivership. And if it's in receivership, he won't be getting the rent. And if he's not getting the rent, he won't be able to pay the loans. And all that shit's going to get taken away from him. He's fucked. When this happens, he may not end up in jail, but he'll be broke.
I guess there'll be some more superhero trading cards coming out real quick.
Yeah, no shit. It's people don't think about that trial too much because it's not criminal and there isn't jail time involved. But when you're dealing with somebody like Donald Trump, who's a narcissist, his whole image is about money and power, all that's going to be taken away in that court case. He's going to be fucked emotionally, financially. I mean, he's having a tougher time collecting money from the Trump-la-fucks as it is. I mean, I think we talked about it. He had a pack with $150 million in it. and now it's down to $3 or $4 million. And there doesn't sound like
Yeah.
he's getting more to replace it. He's got to run multiple trial defenses and also try to run for president. And this is why I don't think he'll be around in 2024. He's going to be fucking buried.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get very many of those big money donors from the Koch brothers on down who are going to throw good money after bad if they can find an alternative. Now, I don't know who that's going to be. I mean, it's not going to be Ramaswamy. It's not going to be DeSantis. It's probably not going to be Nikki Haley because they don't like women, let's be honest. Who's it going to be? It can't be Tim Scott because he's black. And we all know
And
how
maybe
they feel
gay.
about black people.
And maybe gay. You heard what he said. The Republicans are worried about him because he's not married at 57. And they're going, you're going to have to tell us why you're not married at 57. I said, you should have been a Democrat. We wouldn't give a fuck.
Well, there is that, right?
Well, but then somebody asked him, do you have a girlfriend? Yeah, she's very bright and very patriotic. Well, we get to meet her. Yeah, at some point. It reminds me of the girls in school that would tell me, yeah, I have a boyfriend, but he's in Kansas.
Or Canada.
Or Canada,
exactly. Exactly. That's where Tim Scott's girlfriend is. She lives with, she shares an apartment with Lindsey Graham's girlfriend.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Lindsey's made it this far with nobody asking him, so I don't know why they're picking on poor Tim, right?
Because he's black.
Exactly. There you go. Hadn't thought of that.
Well, I mean,
they're literally look at that spread they had on the stage at the debate, right? There's not a candidate among them. There's nobody that the Republican money people are going to throw money at. It's not Asa Hutchinson. It's not Ramaswamy. I mean, this guy looks worse all the time. Come on. I mean, you know, he's wanting to do away with the federal government, all the agencies, shut them down, you know, Department of Education, Department of Energy, get rid of all of them or cut them by 75%. People don't realize these are the people who actually run the country, right? And they want to get rid of all regulation. They basically want to turn America into Hawkins County, Tennessee, where it's outside the city limits. It's the Wild West. There are no building codes. There's no enforcement of any kind. If I can build a mansion and 4 people can come in and start hog operations next door. You know, it's that kind of thing. That's their vision of America.
You know, you and I have something in common with Vivek Ramaswamy. Can you guess what that is? Well, Vivek Ramaswamy just started an account on TikTok. No doubt to reach the young people and send his messages out, which I find kind of ironic because he's the same guy that wants to raise the voting age to 25. So yeah, he knows he can't do that. He knows he'll never do that. He said that to appease the Republicans because the Republicans are in all kinds of trouble because of young people, but now he's on TikTok. So I went on and I said, you know, Vivek, you got about 20,000 people following you, which is pretty good for the short time you've been on. But clearly you want to get in front of people. You want to get in front of many people and send your message out. And you know what? I'd be happy to do a live with you. I'll do a short interview with you. You'll be exposed to my 280,000 followers, and it could be fun. Or maybe you can come on the podcast. I would love to do that. This guy is so easily tore up. It's upsetting that the media is unwilling to do it. They just let him run roughshod like they did with Donald Trump. They're making the same mistake with him that they made with Donald Trump. The only thing is Ramaswamy's a weak-ass candidate.
Yeah. I mean, he's never been, I've never considered him as being anything other than an also-ran who will get his 15 minutes of fame and try to parlay that into something. I'm not sure what, some sort of gravitas or something, or maybe he's thinking 20 years down the road, you know, get that name out there and so forth. But we will never have a President Ramaswamy. I don't think. I didn't think we'd have a Obama either, but, you know, we did.
Well, at this stage of the
because
game,
I think Democrats are open to immigrants and people of different persuasions. Republicans are not going to do that.
well, that's what I'm wondering. When you look at Ramaswamy, when you look at Tim Scott, when you look at Nikki Haley, who's from East India or
Also,
India
yeah,
or
Indian
Pakistan or something.
subcontinent.
But
Yeah,
but do we really believe the Republicans would allow them to be president?
no,
I can't imagine. I mean, they're
Ramasmarmy. It's pronounced Ramasmarmy, by the way.
that makes more sense. It's just I watch him and I just get I throw up in my mouth a little bit
That's it.
because not only is he a bad guy, he's horrible at what he's trying to do. I mean, it's one
Yeah,
thing to try to play that game, but you better be fucking good at it. And he's horrible. He gets destroyed anytime somebody asks him hard questions. He doesn't know what to answer. He diverts, he distracts, he delays, and he just looks foolish. He looks like a younger Donald Trump, just spewing bullshit.
I remember when I was a kid, and I went with my father. My father was looking at cars. He was going to buy. There was no doubt, and he was going to buy a Chevy Impala because I knew that, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that was his car, right? So we go to the Chevrolet dealership, and there's two guys there. One of them is this kind of laconic older guy. Yeah, I think we can set you up with something here, Bill, and get you a good payment or, that kind of thing. This is what he's coming across, just all folksy and everything. And the other guy is young. He got all the words, he's just really ready to put us in this baby and we can do a big disc. We can do this. We can do that. So
Right.
guess who my father bought the car from?
The old
You
laconic
know,
guy. Yeah.
exactly, because he came across trustworthy, and this other guy came across like, I'm gonna put a shiv in you if you don't buy this car from me. I mean, it's that kind of thing that nobody is ever going to believe him because he is not believable.
Right. Well, I learned a lesson when I was in business and I was selling to people. When you first get in, you give them all the benefits and the prices and try to cut a deal on the prices. And the more I did that, the more I did what you imagine salesmen do, the less they trusted me. And I'm not even talking being
Yeah,
obnoxious like Ramaswamy. So I found out another strategy to getting people to buy. And it was, here you go. I got the shit. It's a good price. Do you want it? Well, I'm not sure. Okay, thanks, and hang up on them. Act
yeah.
like you don't give a fuck if they want if they buy it or not, because now they think they're missing out on something. Because why would you not care about selling them something? And it was just a psychological thing, and it fucking worked. It fucking worked.
And I'm guilty of this one myself. I mean, buying, if they sell themselves in a way that they can, as I forget who used to say this, but sincerity is the most important thing, and if you can fake that, you got it
Yeah,
made. Well,
yeah,
that was the case. They came across as honest and trustworthy. They were able to project that, and in many cases, they were. Actually, they didn't have to fake it,
right,
but in a couple of cases, I got fooled because they were good at it, and
right.
um, but that somebody once said, when you're in sales, you're selling yourself, so and
Well,
you've got that quality too. You seem to be above board and straight ahead, and that strategy probably kind of emphasize that in a way. I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm just here to provide it if you want it.
right. Well, somebody said that to me one time. They said, "You sound so sincere. How do you do that?" I go, "Well, I'm actually fucking sincere." I mean, it doesn't make sense to try to slip something by somebody and sell them something because 2 days later they're going to come back pissed off and they're never going to buy from you again. But
Right.
everybody's so short sighted. Nobody can mistake Ramaswamy for being sincere. He's definitely not. He's a slippery snake oil salesman that usually put people off. And anybody of a reason, I mean, the Trumplefucks might like him because he sounds a little like Donald Trump, but there's not enough of them for him to win shit. I had a theory though. and this is purely a theory. I have no reason to think this is even true, but consider this. The Republicans are looking what they have. They are probably having the same feeling I'm having, that Donald Trump is going to go by the wayside. There's just too much shit falling on him. Ron DeSantis really isn't viable either at this point. He's fading fast. The
No,
rest of them are clowns and not real candidates. So
no.
Mitt Romney says he's going to not run for re-election in 2024. If the Republicans wanted to try to rehabilitate their image after Donald Trump has gone by the wayside, you'd want somebody relatively normal. And the closest thing to that would be Mitt Romney. He has his issues too. But could it be that Mitt Romney isn't going to run for the Senate, but might run for the presidency?
That's a possibility, and I wonder if he's not positioning. That did occur to me. Take himself out of the Senate race, and he's ready to go again. I don't think I think they all realize, the realistic Republicans realize, that Donald Trump cannot be elected.
Right.
That he's either going to be in jail or seriously harmed or something. But they don't want to get in there at this point because they don't want to be tarnished. They don't want to even be associated in any way. But over the years, I've seen people. I mean, right now, the people that are running, that are out there showing up for debates and the county fairs and all that. These are people with very few accomplishments now. Nikki Haley was at the UN, and Tim Scott, of course, has been elected and so forth. But they don't have a lot of accomplishments they can point to, other than saying, I'm for this, I'm against that, and so forth. Now, John McCain had a lot of accomplishments, and there were many other Republican candidates, including Mitt Romney, who had accomplishments. I mean, Obamacare is really Mitt Romney's. He was the first one to put it in Massachusetts. I mean,
Right.
something similar to it, right? Because the Heritage Foundation is the one who came up with it. It's just that Obama was finally the one who was able to get it in there. And it
Right.
always boggled my mind that Republicans were against it when it was their creation. But there have been many Republicans that I could have stomached as president, John McCain being one, and just a few others over the years that came out of the Senate or governorships and so forth, that had accomplishments and had support from more than just their party, that
Right.
they had been able to have bipartisan support in their state because they were able to accomplish things. There's nobody in that Republican field right now that has that gravitas. Mitt has it, and he might take another stab at it. He's certainly not too old.
No, but I think Mitt is smart enough to know that there is no Republican that has a fucking chance at this point. I just, the thing about they're going to have to do something to not be embarrassed. If Donald Trump is the candidate, they're going to get wiped out. I mean, it's going to be worse than 2020 by a long shot, just by virtue of all that's gone on since that time, and then you still throw in overturning Roe v. Wade. That's still going to play a huge factor in 2024. I don't care what anybody says.
And Democrats really have to harp on it. They've got to get Biden's accomplishments out there. That's
Right.
number one. But they have to point out what the Republicans really are for, and how horrible the overturning of Roe versus Wade was, and the horror stories we're hearing of women in the states where they put in these very restrictive abortion restrictions that are costing women their lives, or a great deal of trouble and pain
Right.
for routine procedures that would have been done without anybody even thinking about it in previous years. And I got to say this right now: the medical community, get off your fucking ass and do something. Are you scared? Are you that scared of a paycheck? Come on, you used to have to take the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm, right?
Right.
Well, you're doing harm. Get some balls. Stand up
Right.
to these motherfuckers.
I
Come
agree.
on.
I
This
agree.
is to the doctors. I'm talking to you. If you're not doing this, you're a fucking coward and you ought to lose your license.
You have paddles there just in case. You get kind of worked up, but no, I agree with you. I mean, the whole medical thing is absolutely ridiculous. You got to put the blame on medical companies, pharmaceuticals, uh, uh, insurance. They've all taken full advantage of essentially raping the general public. And of course, the Republicans keep us from getting any kind of sensible medical care at sensible prices. It's just,
Right.
it's fucking absurd, actually. It really is.
Well, I have to get hot a little bit because I've got Marsha Blackburn as my senator, who
Yeah.
is a direct payment pipeline to the pharmaceutical industry, and I think she spends Christmas with the Sackler family. I mean,
Wow.
she's that bad, and she just sent a video message to all of her constituents that, we've got to roll back these price cuts because that's going to limit the pharmaceutical companies' ability to bring out new and better medicines and therapies and so forth, which is bullshit. I just watched Katie Porter destroy the pharmaceutical industry with her whiteboard, pointing out that they allocate less money for research and development than they do for trying to make more money. All of it goes into other things, and research and development is just this little bitty orphan over in the corner. And they really rely on the universities and so forth to do most of the research, and then they just claim it.
Right.
And
Right.
so Marsha Blackburn, there's a word for you, and it starts with a W, but I don't use it. But that's what you are.
I was thinking C, but see you next Tuesday. You work less blue than I do, so
Yeah.
I give you credit for that. The thing is I've had people come up to me and say we have to charge this much for pharmaceuticals because then they couldn't do research. I said, wait a minute, you're a Republican, right? And they say, yeah. I said, you don't believe in the free market? I said, what do you mean? I said, if you have a company, you should always be looking for new business and ways to get new business, regardless of, what your income is. You got to keep building the business. You got to keep growing the business. And by cutting pharmaceuticals, do you really believe that medical companies and pharmaceutical companies are just going to sit back and say, well, I can't do anything now. We'll just make our billions and not invent anything else and everybody will die? That's bullshit. The fucking greed will get them. If you find a cure for cancer or Alzheimer's, those motherfuckers will be on it. And you know what? Like you say, it's not the pharmaceutical companies. It's fucking colleges and universities that are looking into this. They just go in and co-opt that shit and make billions off of it.
I firmly believe that if a pharmaceutical company came up with a cure for cancer, they'd bury that thing so far down under the earth you'd never find it, because they are in business to treat symptoms, not cure diseases. And I really do, but we probably found it 10 times over, and they've just stuffed it in the background somewhere. Maybe if you're really, really rich, you can get your hands on it,
Yeah.
but they're never going to bring it out to mom and pop because there's no money in curing diseases. There's only money in treating diseases.
Well, I think
forever.
And maybe doing it in colleges is that, but I think we should have government organizations. This will make the fucking Republicans crazy. Too much government. But in order to kind of make pharmaceuticals a better price, I think what they should do is have government organizations doing heavy research, and we should fund them very heavily. And then,
agreed,
when we come up with something, we have a bidding war for it, that they have to pay the government
exactly
to get access to it. And there will be some qualifications. You can bid on it, you can get it, but you can't charge more than this. That way,
exactly.
That way there'd be some accountability for all this shit.
Well, let's look at insulin, for example. Insulin was isolated early in the 20th century, and the people who did it basically gave away the patent that they could have applied for because they thought it was, it would have been unethical to charge for something that was life-saving to diabetics, right?
Right.
So then the pharmaceutical companies improved it and patented the improvement, and they stopped making the original. So now you can still get that at Walmart and very cheaply, but nobody knows that. I just told you, go to Walmart and ask for the insulin, okay? Not the cheap one, and it will get you through. But
Yeah.
there's no way that they should be able to, change the color or something and get a patent on it. But they do that shit.
Oh, absolutely.
Or they shouldn't be like the Sackler family, have something that is extremely addictive, and yet they give it to everybody for a toothache or whatever and get them addicted, right? That shouldn't happen either. There needs to be a huge rein in on the pharmaceutical industry, and as long as there's that big bucks in there to pay people not to do that, then, and this is Democrats and Republicans, I must say, but primarily Republicans, they are never going to be reined in unless they're, give us a Democratic Senate and House and presidency for 4 more years. You might see some movement along those lines. Biden has done what he could do, both with student debt and with lowering drug prices, but they're screaming like stuck pigs about the little bit of revenue they're losing. But they have to be reined in. And really, what it comes down to is corporations have to be destroyed. They have to be shattered and broken up, and new companies created. But corporations should never be allowed to exist anymore. They talk about the free market, but they've removed all competition. And without competition, you don't have a free market. If you've got Coke and Pepsi running the soft drink industry, they can charge anything they want. As long as people want to drink them, they will pay it. And that's what they've done. They both raised their prices the same week.
Yeah. Ed, you sound like a goddamn communist.
So actually, I'm a democratic socialist, but
but
to a certain extent.
But the whole thing with the antitrust and stuff like that, there was a time when that was a thing, and they broke up the phone company and other companies as well. And I don't know about doing away with corporations. I don't know that you can do that, but we've got to make them not. We've got to make corporations so they're not more powerful than the government. And I'm thinking Apple, and I'm thinking Microsoft, I'm thinking Google, Amazon. These people can pretty much control the country because of the power they have. And that is dangerous ultimately, because now we're just looking at profit and loss and not people.
Right, and I did see one thing. You're familiar with Kroger and Albertsons. They're the same company. They're just different divisions of the same corporation, right? They're voluntarily selling 400 stores to a company called C&S Wholesaling that has had a foot in the supermarket industry. They own some, but they're selling them 400 to try to avoid class antitrust regulators who said you're too big, you have too much influence. So they're voluntarily dumping 400 stores. They should be forced to break up even more, because when you get that one company controlling that many stores, if they can get rid of 400, they've got 2,000 more or something, probably more than that. They're still controlling the market. And that's why you have prices through the roof. I mean, between the time COVID started and now, my grocery bill went from about $70 a week to about 150. Just about a little more than doubled. Right. And I keep track of this crap. I tend to buy pretty much the same thing. So that happened. Now we're seeing gas prices go up again. For what reason? Well, they don't want Joe Biden to be president. That's the reason.
That's exactly right. And
They're
I'm sad to hear that your groceries have gone up. I know that means only one thing, and that means Wednesdays are Wiener Water Wednesday.
yeah, well, I can actually afford the wieners and the water, but
Wow.
yeah,
Well, that's because you live in Tennessee, and on the pittance we get in our pensions, you're living like a king there. You can either you could if you don't have a lot of money, you can live like a king if you move to Thailand or Tennessee.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, as a retired broadcaster, I make my take home is twice the median here in Tennessee. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm I look around at my neighbors, not my neighbors, because I live in a pretty good area of town. My immediate neighbor to the left is a billionaire, and the guy in front of me is a judge, and the lady on the corner also a millionaire. So I'm pretty good. I'm the poor guy on the block, but the nearby on the other side of the park from me, people live in shacks, and I don't know how the hell they make it. To be
All right.
honest with you, I know. I guess they go to the blessing boxes outside the church where they got the soup and stuff, But pretty good soup, by the way. No, I put it in. I don't take it out. But there's a lot of charities around where there's a place you can go and get a meal every day, pretty much if to get you by. But there's a lot of poverty around here, a lot of poverty.
Yeah, it's something that we shouldn't be having to deal with. It's just that we've got corporations and wealthy people just taking advantage of everybody. You know how Donald Trump always likes to give people nicknames, like
Yeah,
uh deranged Jack Smith, shit like that. Well, Joe Biden is entering in
yeah,
that realm. He has a new name um for Donald Trump. And it's funny if you're old, but if you're a millennial or Gen Z, you don't know what the fuck he's talking about. He calls him Donald Hoover Trump. You have to, I mean,
people don't
Hoover was
remember
before my
Hoover.
time. He was before my time, but he
Yeah,
basically created the depression, right? He was the one that led us into it.
let me put it this way: he didn't do anything to help it, but it was well underway before he got there. The same thing happened on Wall Street in the 1920s as happened with under Bush, where they were selling these bogus, on paper things that had no value. So the stock market crashed, and Hoover was the president at the time. I wouldn't say that he was terribly responsible for it. He actually did a few good things in his life before he became president. But I have to point out that before Roosevelt, who of course took us out of the Depression. Before Roosevelt, this was not a great place to live. You had a few people with money, and everybody else worked for them and got paid nothing. They were like slaves, only they called them sharecroppers, right?
All right.
Then Roosevelt comes up with these things like rural electrification. So they came in, built all these dams, they got this cheap electricity. So all these firms from up north said that'd be a good place to start a factory because we got all these people down there who work for shit. They're not unionized. And at the same time, we got all this practically free electrical power. So we had all these companies come down, start, and it changed the place completely. It people that had been sharecroppers, like my parents, were middle class. Well, their parents were. They were middle class all of a sudden. But then along comes the 80s after Reagan, and they start sending stuff overseas, and now we're back to where we were. The growth industry around here seems to be lawn mowing. Most of the factories are gone and closed down and shuttered, and the ones that are still here are foreign owned. There's a couple of Korean ones, a Japanese one, and you work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you get a week, 1 or 2 days off a month, maybe. that kind of thing. And the pay is not great. $12 an hour is what most of them advertise, that kind of thing. So we've gone full circle here, from having a fairly good light industry here that employed a lot of people for a lot of years. And now there's very little. It's all a service economy. And you see a lot of, like I say, every other truck has a lawnmower trailer behind it.
Yeah. Well, if we're lucky enough to get Joe Biden in the Oval Office, the majority in the House, the majority in the Senate, do you see us being able to come back from all that we've been through since Donald Trump took over?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I do believe that, because I think Joe has probably been the best president since Nixon for the common man, especially those who are on the lower end of the economic scale, because his Build Back Better plan, we're getting high speed internet here, which we
Really?
never had before.
Oh,
When COVID was a problem here, and the kids had to stay home and they wanted to be on the computers. Well, the kids didn't. Number one, they didn't have computers, but number two, they didn't have Wi-Fi. They didn't have any way to get to it. Most of it came in by dish or something like that, and out in the country they just didn't have them, so they didn't. There was no way they could be online with the teachers. So part of his infrastructure bill is putting in high speed internet that they'll be able to have here, and that will bring firms that couldn't be here before because they need that kind of communication, right?
right.
That kind of access to internet. So yeah, that will help. All the roads around town are being paved with money that Joe Biden gave them. Now they're not going to own up to that.
No.
Now, I mean, every time they pave a road, Marcia Blackburn will show up, or Diane Harshbarger, our representative in Washington, who doesn't represent us. She represents the rich people, right? The
Right.
corporations. That's who Diane Harshbarger represents. And they'll show up to open the highway and say, oh, this is great. Look what we're doing, but it's Biden money. He
Yeah.
provided it. And we see the Ford plants coming in because to make new batteries, and they're not the only ones. There are other coming in to open factories here because Biden is providing the infrastructure money and so forth too. So yeah, I do think it can come back, and I think it will, but only if people vote for Joe Biden in the next election.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to wrap things up, but first I want to make sure people know where they can find you. We've got a lot of fans out there that like having you on the show, and and the reason I bring it up is because somebody wrote on the podcast uh, website that I read on the podcast yesterday, and I think somebody should check on this person, because this person, Glenda, said, I could listen to you 24 hours a day. There's a cry for help. There's a cry for help there.
No, you're entertaining, Mike. Really, we tell it
Uh,
like it is.
not to my family. I couldn't get them to listen to me for
Well,
24 seconds. I told a
a
story.
prophet,
Go ahead.
a prophet has no honor in his own country. That's out of
Yeah,
the Bible, I
that's
think.
true. Even my granddaughter gives me shit. I told this story. I'm going to tell you this story because I'm redundant as fuck. But I'm overseeing my granddaughter. My wife and my son are working on some photos and fixing photos. So I'm sitting with my granddaughter um, uh, on her dad's bed, and I'm watching her play on the iPad. She's playing these learning games, and I'm sitting there next to her, and I'm going, "Wow, you're doing really good. You really know that pretty well." And she goes, "Yeah." And so she was unimpressed. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to get more comfortable. So I take my hat off, and she's not looking at me. And then she goes, "Grandpa." I go, "What?" And she looks up at me and she goes, "Put your hat on." I go, "Why?" Goes, "Just put your hat on." I go, "Can I have it off?" "Put your hat on, Grandpa." I don't know what she meant by that, but it's got me a little insecure.
Well, I got the same problem, I'll tell you. And every day I look up there, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, well, it doesn't look that bad. And then I get online here and I see myself and I look bald.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I am.
Well,
You
and
know, those,
the thing about it is that I never, you and I, well, you were, I was never on camera. So being on camera on TikTok the first few times or first month or so was really foreign to me. I mean, it's one thing to, you know, as well as I do, I could be on the radio sounding as good as I possibly can and be in a t-shirt, my hair messed up and half asleep, and I could still sound all right. But now you got people looking at you. I got to fucking shower. I got to put a hat on because my granddaughter says, don't go without the hat. That's not a fucking good idea. You have to have a clean shirt. And, you know, you got to understand a guy like me has his problems when it comes to shirts because inevitably, no matter whenever I eat, something ends up
well,
on the shirt. You notice how you can only see from here up. That's why I don't step back because God
I
knows
remember
what's on my
using that
shirt.
joke on you back. I remember what did we did a thing called the morning show at night when we were begging for money, and you and me and Terry decided to switch shifts with Craig and Gennaro one time, and I don't remember the context of it, but we had a different audience than we were normally had in the morning, you know, and
Right.
I remember saying to the guy, I can always tell what Mike had for breakfast because it's on his shirt.
Right, right. Well,
but
that's true. That's a curse that my entire family has. It happens
well,
to my brother. It happened to my mom. It happened to my grandfather. It's just, and you know, so my my family laughs at me because you know when you get grease on your shirt. In fact, I think I got some grease on this shirt here because my wife washed the clothes.
it's with you forever. Yeah.
No, 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 it's not. There's a way to get rid of it. And my family laughs at me because when I go do the wash, I go get the clothes. I'm in a condo, so I got to go across the hall and it's like a buck a load or whatever. So I got to have quarters. I get the laundry soap and I grab a bottle of Dawn. And every shirt I
Yeah.
put in, I have to check for grease spots and shit. I put the Dawn on and it comes off. But uh, my son said to me, that's a lot of work putting that Dawn on all that stuff. He says, why don't you just learn how to fucking eat? Try to hit your mouth now and again. And I suppose that's I'm 63. I'm not changing shit now. I'm going to be what I'm going to be.
Well, let me tell you, I'm 73. It doesn't get better.
No, no,
I have the
no.
same problem, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Can't hit the mouth anymore. It goes on the shirt. I use spray and wash instead of Dawn, but it gets the same thing done, and I have to check that. And it's interesting. We both do laundry.
Yeah,
Ladies, we're prizes. You know,
yeah, yeah.
we
Oh,
do housework.
there's no question. I'm a fucking catch. I don't know that
Yeah,
my wife would agree with me, but I kind
yeah,
of think
mine
so.
either. Yeah,
No, no, no. And there's another thing about getting old too, is if you're driving someplace with your wife and uh, one of you will say, I have to go to the bathroom. And so
always.
and somebody will say, well, we got a place 10 miles up. That's not good enough. When you're old and have to go to the bathroom, it was 10 seconds ago that you had to go to the bathroom. And it's and the one thing about going to the bathroom, if you really have to go to the bathroom, a bowel movement, for example, and you're holding it,
Mhm,
why is
mhm.
it becomes impossible to hold those last three steps before you get to the toilet? You ever notice that? I think it's the anticipation. You go, I'm here, okay, but no, hold on, hold on. Yeah, the things you have to worry about when you're in your 60s and 70s are just disappointing and embarrassing, frankly. So so we've done all we can
Bathrooms are
here.
always hard. I think right. I have to plan my day around where is a bathroom available. You know,
Oh yeah.
I mean that I can't go here, I can't go there unless you know I temper that. This morning, my wife had a checkup at the doctor, and we take the dog with us, and I couldn't. I took her for a walk, but I couldn't go to the bathroom and leave her in the car because it was hot, right, and so
All right.
forth. So um, we decided to grab lunch while we were there. So my wife just gets on her phone and, puts in the order to Panera Bread. And then I'm going, oh, great. Now I can go to the bathroom when we get there, when I'm picking it up, and then planning my day based on using the bathroom. And I have to say this, and probably one of the worst things about the 1950s and the old Jim Crow, if you were a black person, how the hell did you plan your day?
Oh,
Because
Jesus.
none of the local businesses would let black people in to use the bathroom. I think the only place that they could, because of federal restrictions, was the bus station. That may have been the case. I'm not sure about that. And there was a black-owned restaurant that they might have been able to use. I don't know. But when you think about civil rights, when you think about the really bad things about it, that was one of them.
Yeah.
Just going out, you had to know, maybe there was a green book for where you could use a bathroom, I don't know, or word of mouth or something, but good Lord, how awful was that? How awful was
It
that you didn't know where you could use the bathroom?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this, back in the 60s, when I'd go up to my cabin with my grandparents, grandfather was a great guy. He's one of my best friends. But he was one of those guys from, whenever he was born, 1911 or whatever. And when you get in the car, you got to do one thing. The most important thing you got to do when you get in that car is make good time. You got to
Yep.
make good time. And then when you get to your destination, you talk to the guy and tell him, your buddy, how good a time you made. And then he'll tell you, no, you should have gone this way. You could have shaved 10 minutes off. And they'll debate this for an hour. But because my grandfather had to make good time, and I'm like 6 or 7, my brother's 5 or 6, we're sitting in the car. And of course, we have to go to the bathroom. Now, we could have to go to the bathroom every 15 minutes because we're little kids, right? So
Right.
they had to come up with a plan to not have to stop so they could make good time. So
Coke bottle.
no, 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 no. Well, my grandmother was a little more thinking ahead here.
Oh,
Every
yeah.
time we went, she had a empty can of Folgers coffee because it's got a lid, it's got everything. And me and my brother be sitting in the back seat trying to figure out how to go to the bathroom in a coffee can while you're driving 65 miles an hour. That was
Yeah.
probably one of the most disturbing things that happened to me when I was young. I'm going, Grandma, I don't want to do this. Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, there was no choice. My dad was a long haul trucker, so it was in spades.
Right.
I mean, he was constantly up against the clock. So yeah, wherever we went, I don't care if it was to the grocery store or somewhere 60 miles away, there was no stopping.
Yeah.
My mother was always, go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. I can't do anything. Go to the bathroom. We're not stopping. And really, there weren't that many places to stop at the time, probably,
No. Well,
although I've done it on the roadside with the car pulled over many a time.
I have
They
too.
can't see you.
Go hide in the fir trees. But well, the nice thing about it
Exactly.
now is I don't have the pressure I once had because my dad would never fucking stop for anything.
Right.
He was worried about making good time. But now if I'm in a car with my wife and I'm an adult now, I'm an equal partner. I say, honey, we got to stop. I got to go to the bathroom. Never any kickback. She'll say, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so,
Yeah,
so it's a
yeah,
great arrangement now that, every so often, more frequently than we'd like to admit, you got to stop and go to the bathroom. The only problem is if you're out of town, you can,
yeah.
uh, you can run into a nice bathroom or you can run into an absolute shithole. My wife and I were down buying some RV, which we should never have bought, but it was my wife's idea. We go into this place that has this RV. It's like a mechanic's place or whatever. And I walk into the bathroom and it's
Right.
absolutely horrible. I mean, it's dirty as can possibly fucking be. And all the walls are plastered with pages out of Hustler magazine. And there was only one bathroom. And my wife
Yeah.
says, I'm going to go to the bathroom. I say,
No, honey.
honey, why don't we go up to the gas station? I think you'll like it better. And she goes, pretty bad, huh? Oh, I said, oh, way worse than you can imagine. You don't
Yeah.
want to go in there.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I've had my wife come out of a few places where I've stopped to get gas, going, horror show. We got to stop again.
Yeah.
I can't go to the bathroom in there.
My
And my father was not restricted by that. He'd just go out on the front porch and let's take a leak.
yeah.
No big deal to him.
Yeah, my wife doesn't come out and say horror show. She generally comes out retching, literally physically ill. And she's going, oh shit. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up for the Rational Boomer podcast. Hey, Ed, thanks for coming in. It's always fun
You
to
bet.
have you on.
I had fun.
It's reminiscent of the days when we were on the radio. And we're getting paid pretty much the same as when we were on the radio too. Pretty close.
Yeah. Well, you're getting paid. I'm just here along for the
Not
ride.
for the podcast. I'm not.
Not yet, but you'll make it. But speaking of which, yeah, if you want to hear more of my stories, you can check me out on TikTok at Holler Troll, or doing reels too. Just Donald.Edward Jones, something like that. I don't know, but TikTok's probably the main one. You can find me there pretty easy.
Yeah, check them out on TikTok. It's spelled HOLLERTROLL at Holler Troll. And
Yeah.
put it this way, for you older folks that are listening to this show, if I was going to compare it to something, it's not about politics like we talk about here. It's more interesting than that. And the best thing I could probably make a comparison to is Paul Harvey. Wouldn't you say that?
I've had that comparison.
Yeah.
Paul Harvey and Andy Rooney and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a commentary, and some of it's autobiographical. Occasionally it's political, but by and large, it's like, this is the way it was. I call it reeling in the years, REALIN, reeling in the years. I'm telling you the truth about what it was really like during different points of my lifetime, rather than the fictions that you often were taught in school or by people along the way. I'm giving the real lowdown on it. I've got one up now about when I worked at the post office and going postal. So that's check that one out.
That may get a little crazy, but reeling in the years, Ed's a marketing genius, says the guy who came up with Rational Boomer. So I don't know that writing advertising is our strong point, but thanks for coming in. For those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.